Modern Litany. These tumble-down times of rain-shattered shacks, of pot-boiling terrors that come by degrees, of wide-splitting canyons between the grand old palace and the nouveau foreclosed, of economies of scale and ecologies imbalanced, justice blind to those without contacts, quake-shaken islands in irradiated oceans, annual 100-year storms, antiquated systems of poverty management, futile constructs, futile efforts, hidden hoarders of vast wealth, televised hoarders of full trailers, and empty newspapers cluttering the collective, denial framed as science, obstruction as strategy, polarity as spectrum, infotainment, edutainment, anti-intellectual privatization of individual aspiration, anti-evolutionary deprivation of cultural inspiration, breathless reportage of minutiae. Inflationary fears, free trade slavery, expense account prostitution, corporate humanity, cooperative inhumanity, inhuman corporatocracy, co-opted occupations, oligarchic oversight, telescopic vision of times ago, futures sold short for historic gains, and we, too far away to see the forest for the lack of trees. Awakened and alone. She contracted, reshaped, accommodated every dent, each bent inclination of my bruised and swollen ego, loaned my sprained spirit a crutch from her expansive collection, carved romance novels down my spine to wake me from the ever-sleep 2 decades of extended weekend made habitual with her tongue. When she left, her pillowed scent dissolved. The poet's dissipated lie of lingering perfume diffused, debunked by cruel and fluid mathematics of atmospheric shift and flow.
Let's make this happen. Does Neil Sedaka play Sudoku? If he does he play to the sound of cicadas while sipping sambuca in southern Sedona? Does he call up Madonna and Robert De Niro to come for canasta or even some Uno, then afterwards, hopefully, maybe, Sudoku? And Kiki D? Would she? Could she? Do Kiki and Yoko eat pico de gallo with David Sedaris? Do they speak of antiques and quote some quaint haiku? Just what do they do, if they do, when they do Sudoku? And what of Santana? De Kooning, Sinatra? Did Frank croon a tune while he did his Sudoku? Did he doobie-doo and shooby-dooby-doo? And did he do that voodoo while he did Sudoku? Did Eva and Ava and Jaja and True, when it was Trey hip to be hep, do Boku Sudoku? Did Chico and Harpo and Groucho and Zeppo and even old Gummo watch Silvers do Bilko while they did Sudoku? Count Dooku and Luke, long ago, far away, when they went to Naboo, did some space Sudoku. And fluky but true, I've heard that Camus, when he did Sudoku, wore a toque from J. Crew. Who knew? And what about you? When you wait in a queue or you sit in the loo, do you curse the time through or do swift Sudoku? Do you wear a Seiko or maybe a Faco? Do you practice Kung Fu or watch Scooby-Doo? If you do Sudoku, when you do Sudoku, do you ever feel cuckoo, like you've got a loose screw or perhaps even two? Is that you? Do you see yourself in this picture I drew? And I, do I too? Oh, I did and I do. Some nights more than a few till the day comes anew. Only when I unglue and my eyes are askew do I put down the pen and decide that I'm through. Oh, wait, that's a 2.
For writers on solstice. On the shortest day of the year, explore the brilliance that has lain dormant. Welcome it back. Over the next months, observe it as it grows, nurture it in the infancy of its return. Every year we travel into darkness, and then, almost habitually now, we bid gleeful goodbye to the previous year in vague hope that next year will be better. We forget to take stock of what we have gathered on the difficult trail, what we bring with us as we emerge. Remember the bad dreams as well as the good. We spend time in the cave with the cauldron brewing, reducing, now as the Awen flows from below ground, springs toward oceanic depths beneath brightening skies. Taste its clarified solution on your salmon tongue. Recall the warmth of indoors when earth lay frozen in the landscape of your youth. Snow fell heavy and soft perhaps, or frosted grass crunched under stamping boots. Also, knowing crocuses will emerge. Re-engage in anticipation your love of earthy smells from long-neglected underhomes of memory. Your hands so small dug deep to find the tunnel-dark loam to hold for close inspection. You peered past clumps through tiny caverns to grains on your way to the intuition of ever smaller bits, well before you had the language or the knowledge to describe or discuss molecules, atoms, electrons, or quarks, or things unknown as yet unnamed, of which those bits are made. Those quarks, those atoms, those molecules, those grains, those cavern walls, those clumps, those joyous, filthy hands, those beautiful, curious, peeping eyes. Now as the Awen flows from below ground, springs toward oceanic depths, beneath brightening skies, taste its clarified solution on your salmon tongue.
Out of respect for the children, let us not speak of gun control. Let us grieve in silent outrage lest one of those small figures carrying memories of fearful moments, cupboard cuddled, waiting with a teacher for an end to either deadly shootings or themselves, think this horror might have been averted had we all been willing even once to dream beyond heroic violence to the far more challenging, more courageous, more inspiring vision of heroic peace.
Out of respect for the victims, let us not speak of mental health, but rather soothe the conscience of a country with simplistic categories: good guys, bad guys, innocent and guilty, lest we lose to shades of gray our mindfulness that a culture closed to those who most need help, who least are able to afford much needed meds, who cry and stamp and tantrum, is not to blame, but only those who once cast out and told they can't be saved return in blazing rage, inhabit shadow, and all the rest a pious light. Out of respect for the soldiers, let us not speak of peace, for if a world of diplomatic, thoughtful problem-solving is a possibility, why then how dare we send our loved ones out to die, to strive in terror and privation, to sacrifice their bodies and their minds, their limbs and senses to explosive conflict, far away, outside the rules of civil conduct, where to kill is just as much a job as filing, cleaning rooms, or sliding cans past barcode scanners. Out of respect for our history, speak not of genocides committed, of infected blankets given out, of trails of tears and wounded knees, of treaties broken, promises abandoned, reservations cordoned off and redefined as minerals emerged and unexpected resources came to light and seemed more valuable than earth or sky or human beings. Out of respect for tradition, let us not speak of change. Out of respect for the dead, let us all still our tongues. Out of respect for the past, let us never speak of the future. Out of respect for the wealthy, let us not speak of the poor. Out of respect for the poor, let us not speak of the economy. Out of respect for the worker, let us not speak of unions. I am out of respect. Let us now observe not a single moment of silence. An effing poem. Once upon the world, a time grew hairy round the edges. Pixels calculated to strand spun algorithmic fringes to frame woolly vision tunnel sight. Now, crosshair clarity through scope-space lenses, history's hard-fused glass and flickering liquid crystal today, snaps pointedly to full-color focus. Courtside and static, see bright banners and sharp parapets of fairy tale fantasy for frail fabric and fragile facade, all frayed and falling, failing clearly if not happily, ever after. I paid for a full tour through the abattoir of love. Before the heart-fed sluice, red-stained and galvanized shadow, I said, conceptual abstraction, and she, no purest representation, deadly accurate. Emerging, both slain, from the dim inside, we squinted filters against the headache of literal day. I condescended to explain how inference and implication differ. She read beneath the lie, though. Eyes cast past my throne shade. I meant not inference, but projection. She sighed a last romantic deflation that made me start then, at the end, to recognize in reflection's flash. It was I who led the beautiful tour to death and sacrificed my own tender for the privilege. At the new year, days roll out before us like dice from hopeful hands, The calendar's an empty table, felt green as spring's implicit promise, and when the pips have settled out, the rake will sweep the field fresh for fortune's giddy gamble. Let go the losses. Bet bold the tosses. Let ride the risk that living is. Bastille Day. Throw wide the prison gates today. Incarceration neither rehabilitates those within nor remunerates those without. The time has slipped upon us for razor wire fences all to fold away and consciousness see sky. Stone certainty always lies. Brutal institutions validate the violence contained and that of those beyond, aware of distant towered walls. The threat of dungeons dense and dripping stifled air binds all of us to terror, makes docile those who learn the lessons bruised on pages of imprinted skin. Identify with the abuser, be the beloved, unthreatening one, quiet in the night, silent and supportive. Throw wide the tight-stitched lips today. Solitary voices pressed to inner whispers must find wind and voice and echo down the corridors. Sing dangerous ideas to light. Howl to the wolf-dark skies and learn how many of the pack call back. Self-censorship becomes unspoken, unnoticed as a watchword taught from the cradle, hush now, hush. They say as if it is a sentiment of love to settle us so gently to the crib, to look out through the bars. Then watch your mouth, go back to bed, nobody wants to hear it. Quiet now, indoor voices. Don't get clever, too smart for your own good. Throw wide the minds, get smart, speak out. Deny the brick its power, smash cinder blocks to cinder, open arms to those who most offend, and ask in warmest tones, what do you need? Think not, what have they done, but what have I? When all the faces turn toward the long obscured sun and all the voices rise in song, when all ideas can be turned upon the lathe of reason, refined for greatest value, and applied, we will look back on these blood-wine days of gray bars and repressed rage and say, the concept of a permanent record is preposterous. I went into a pawn shop for a diamond ring to put on a finger, to take the future into my hands, to put my future into her hands. A man there was hawking a fancy box, $45. But the man stammered, it's one of a kind, designed it myself, 50 tops. He took the cash. I still got the hat, the broker said, and your cane with the spring. The man nodded sadly and said, when I can, just as soon as I can. I thought, what is a magician without his props, without his hat, his cane with the spring, the fancy box he designed himself? Seeing my eyes, he spoke to me and said, a mentalist, maybe. That's pretty good, I said, but that made him angry, and as he walked toward the exit, he muttered, I got a coin in my pocket, I can make it multiply. I got a coin in my pocket, I can make it multiply. I said, you gotta show it first, that's part of the trick. He said, yeah, you got a quarter? I held one out to him and he took it from my fingers. He held it in his palm, he put it in his pocket and said, what is a magician without his props? The next time I saw him, he shuffled like a beggar. He sipped a beer and muttered softly. I went into the 7-Eleven and spent $2.50 to bring the sad, mumbling man a pack of cards. He unwrapped the cellophane with reverence. He fanned them out and said, "Take one, don't show me what it is, don't tell me anything." And as I cupped the card, he said, "If that's the ace of diamonds there, you hold my future in your hands." I slipped the card face down into the deck between his fingers and said, "No, baby, it's all yours, it's all you." And then he shuffled like a master. By water's edge we share incomplete dialogue lines dangling. We fish for something sensed beneath the surface, slippery, elusive, but catch only shimmering glimpses. The crushing urgency of mortality. I did not see how late it was, how far along the day, until my immortality had all but slipped away. On rising wings of arrogance sustained by foolish youth, I felt my every fleeting thought contained some telling truth. Now darkness folds me up in time and gravity's embrace, the soaring, banking man-child's spirals flailing free from grace. The certainties that carried me have frayed and fallen frail. The clarity of purpose fades to memory gone pale. So saturate your lungs, young friends. Draw deep the living breath. Take action and take flight before you learn the fear of death. Your wisdom, love, and conscience serve as sextant, scope, and star. Your faultless intuition guides you onward, up and far. Who says you cannot change the world has given up the game. Provide your own permissions, and unflinching by your name. You will not hear it coming, it keeps slipping up behind, but while the shadow trails you shine a light and sing behind. You cannot know how late it is, how far we've slipped the slope. Assume electric urgency. Your mankind's current hope. On encountering a college girlfriend in middle age. You turn me counterclocking up the days to what I was when I was where I was, when you were there to wish upon a time of hair-dark nights in languid love, when gray and stiff were never yet, but fearing, reeling feelings fueled by fight or flight. Fool of fools, I fled. Out at the crossroads, sleeves rolled back, sweet tears down, dripping sudden sorrow. She stands as cars pull by, making deals with the wind, and wondering whether there's anyone at all, to hold her to her word. As we age, and let us hope we do, we come to know the dying, we come to grieve the dead. Solemnities slip by like sweet and salty soft-serve summer days when lemonade stand fantasies of fortunes gripped in tiny hands dissolve to condensation bright beneath our eyes. Slow drops distort and magnify a clear trail, then sublimate to nothing, a diagram of transience traced in transparency. After every hothouse comfort has been peddled out to wilting, the chairs and tables folded down, leaned aside, some weep, some smile a final crowfoot wrinkled thought to silence. Then, living on, together, walk back up the waking aisle to see another fall in nature's golden leaving.
We are the only Jews in Schuylerville, New York. Everyone in Schuylerville knows we are the only Jews. So there is considerable confusion surrounding the great, well-decorated Christmas tree in our large, uncurtained living room. We are not very good Jews. After a childhood of envy toward her friends with their big, decorated trees and their wrapped presents, my mother has decided she is a grown-ass woman and can celebrate the holiday however she damn well pleases. So every year we pick out a tree, we set it up in the living room. My mother decorates it, my sister and I are in charge of tinsel. And every year she screams at me, "Strands, not clumps!" Presents wait under it for the 25th. My father is an atheist, but he believes in history and tradition. So he pulls the menorah out of the closet, and for 8 nights we turn our backs on my mother's secular celebration tree. And we go through baffling rituals. We don't always know what day Hanukkah starts, so we wind up burning extra candles to make lost time. He doesn't know the Hebrew. So as he lights the candles, he solemnly intones abracadabra, alakazam. We light the candles, we don't eat ham. By the 8th night, it becomes absurd. We will not eat it in a boat. We will not eat it with a goat. We will not eat the Gentiles' ham. We will not eat it l'chaim. This year he has found a pamphlet. On one side it has the Hebrew, on the other side it has the phonetic spellings in English. So we mouth incomprehensible words. Baruch atah Adonai, I have a clue what I am saying. My sister and I ask him for an explanation of the holiday, and first he goes the traditional self-loathing anti-Semitic route. He says, we still celebrate because 5,000 years ago, one of us got a good deal on some lamp oil. And then he winces and shrugs as though he is forgiving himself for some minor slight committed against a college roommate whose nickname is remembered, but whose true name is melted into memory. And he tries to explain the holiday. It is utterly baffling. There are Maccabees who are inexplicably not Scottish. There are refugees from some war in the Middle East who hide in a cave, and outside darkness falls, and inside the white light burns, and it's all about oil, how much there is, how long it will last. My sister is 13. She has a keenly refined sense of hypocrisy. She has figured out that religion has been at the root of many wars over the millennia. So any nod to any religion is an indication that my parents are not as committed to the peace movement as they would have everyone believe. She has figured out that Judeo-Christian traditions are steeped in patriarchal history and wrongs, so any nod to either of those traditions is an indication that my parents are not as committed to equal rights and feminism as they would have everyone believe. She has figured out that the gift-giving season is part of a corporate consumerist construct, so any exchange of presents is an indication that my parents are not as committed to global workers' rights as they would have everyone believe. I am 11. I like presents. I like days off from school. reading comic books in my pajamas for so long that the elasticized ankles leave rib marks in my pale winter flesh. Dusty, Dustin Hoffdog, the great matted sheepdog mutt of my youth, believes that we are the best, most wonderful family that has ever lived, and that any food left outside the refrigerator is there for him. He is having a very happy, very gassy holiday season. The true miracle of the season lies in the fact that our house does not explode. This year there is an energy crisis. Words like OPEC and embargo on the news, words as meaningless to me as if they were in Hebrew. It's all about oil, how much there is, how long it will last. My father has bought an old pot-bellied stove at a local antiques market. He has had a handyman set it up in our living room, running stovepipe up to a hole in the chimney. He says it will save on the heating bill, and he is correct. Because when the stove is lit, it heats an area around itself, 7 feet in diameter, an area that encompasses the thermostat. When the stove is lit, the furnace shuts down. Every year, he has brought out the record of Dylan Thomas, my namesake, reading his poem, A Child's Christmas in Wales. And every year I have been told to sit and listen to it, which I do for 2 or 3 minutes before growing bored and wandering away. This year he hasn't brought out the record. Perhaps he's gotten tired of a tradition that always leaves him disappointed. Perhaps he's just forgotten. I go to the shelf, I find the record and pull it out. I slide the vinyl from the cardboard sleeve. Perhaps I've inherited his love of tradition. Perhaps I'm seeking parental approval. I put it on the turntable. I drop the needle. And the dead Welshman tells his childhood tales of snowballs thrown and melted long ago. I lie on the floor, I rest my head on Dusty, knees pointed toward the ceiling, small feet chilling flat on hardwood. The dog cranes around to snuffle me, petting me in his way. His breath smells of stolen latkes. And I listen to the salt-swept, sea-stained voice of the drunken Welshman. He speaks of candied cigarettes that unwrap to prove chocolate against his tongue. And I've had candied cigarettes, and they were always made of stiff bubble gum. So I think he's gotten it wrong, because I'm 11, and I know everything. But I don't. I don't know that as I listen, I am learning to love words and sentences and cadence. I don't know that I am learning to listen and learning to write. I don't know that I am freezing my own snow globe memories against future use. Outside, the white snow falls. Inside, the black disk turns. And here, in this cold and godless house, these are holy days. Thank you.
Open each day new eyes skyward. Suck deep the wild blues, white puffs, wide grays, animal shapes, inverted fantasy scapes. Stage your escape from now as new nows come. Open each brief moment like a summer camp letter. Unfold the hidden mystery to read what's plain. Feel the papery substance as heart-mist home smells emerge. Return to learn between lines and breathe through every period. Open arms and heart to every cheek and other turned trusting. Smile, sparkle, warm the world unguarded. Burn bright, cast light. Feed every leaf as if you were yourself the sun. The sun holds nothing back. Open every door you own, every window slip to let the air flow like blood within and breeze without concern for endings. Until the final still and settled lid and last nail locks it down. Closure will not serve.